Logic at its root is a medical instrument. 10% of human skulls recovered from the Stone Age have silver dollar-sized holes bored out of them, the bone removed, the button opened. The tools they must have used to perform this surgery were crude, rock-made, rudimentary, ignoble implements. Must have had good reason. The brain swells to twice its size just thinking of it. Surely their logic was a logic of monsters. The way a demon takes up residence in the grey matter, builds a haunt shack below the bridge of your nose, and through the bored hole said demon can be released from its captive inelastic concavity. The homosexual, since his invention, has been a creature held captive in the skull. Simple ritual. Touch the back of your head. Invent an absence in the solid matter. Trace the serrated ridge. Imagine what might come sprinting from your head if only you had the acumen to drill a hole in it. Athena was born this way. Phineas Gage is said to have had a metal rod pass through his brain and emerge at the other side a swan. In the film Pi, the hero learns the true name of God by opening his occipital bone. Every instrument of torture is born this way. Every instrument of sound and surgery, every painting and chair and chariot, every ritual and rite of passage, every word and hermeneutic. The skulls of fetuses come soft and in pieces so they can pass easier through their mothers into the world. The fontanelles harden with age until behold your new adult shape. Perhaps that ancient surgery is less about monsters and more of an argument for the preservation of youth. To break apart the skull so you might pass back through your mother into oblivion. I understood this smoking cigarette after cigarette on the front porch of a man who'd gripped my head as if he were trying to disassemble it. How much easier it would have been had he succeeded, smoke rising up through the hole in me. After, I lay beside him in the position all humans take preparing for sleep, regardless of age or history, of what terrible things they've just done with their hands.
That was On Trepanation by Sam Sachs, read to us by our guest today, Dan Goodwin.
Hello, hello.
They are a performance poet and a theatre maker and a friend of mine.
Hey.
Thought I'd throw that in there as part of your bio.
Boom.
You know, you can have that up on your profile.
That's at
Theatre maker,
the top.
performance poet, friend of Sazok.
Friend of Sazok.
Very important. Put it on your CV.
You know, for the first, I've few months of seeing you perform at different spaces in Auckland. I think I only, this is before I knew Jack or that kind of circles. I only knew you as Sazok.
I really appreciate that, to be honest. You know, sometimes when I use Sazok, I'm like, stop making Sazok happen. Sazok's not going to happen. Yeah, but I think Sazok's happening, so.
It's definitely happening.
Yeah. I mean, it happened to you.
It happened to me. It had been done to me, to people.
I appreciate that in a big way. Yeah, wow, I've never heard that poem before. I'm quite blown away by it. I'm gonna have to read it again later because, quite moved and in some ways disturbed by it. Why did you choose it?
That book, actually, that collection was recommended to me by Jordan Hamill. Do you know?
Yeah, shout out Jordan Hamill.
Shout out Jordan Hamill, amazing poet, performer, over in the States at the moment studying. I'm not sure. I don't tend to read a lot of things until they're recommended to me, and then I read a lot. I kind of deep dive about a person. Sam Sachs is one of those poets who is queer and then writes about mental health a lot, and writes about mental health especially in a really complex, nuanced way, and often from not stating it but from a kind of disability standpoint as well, which is really interesting.
What do you mean with not stating it?
mental health is a tricky one. I kind of similar to that conversation we were having literally before this started about like, how do you want to introduce yourself? I've gone back and forth with putting disability advocate on my bio for the longest time. I don't know, it feels like appropriating something much larger than myself sometimes and my mental health experiences to claim disability as a label or a community, which it is. Like for people listening, like mental health, you know, is a part of the disability community. There are many people and arguments out there that will tell you that and reinforce that. But yeah, I don't know. We don't see that a lot. We don't have many conversations that talk about mental health as if it's a disability issue. You know, we talk about it as if it's a mental health issue. And when we talk about disability, we talk about physical disability. Yeah.
So Sam Sax's poetry is about mental health, and for readers who read poetry that deals with disability or touches on disability as like a theme, we could read their poetry as having that theme as well, although they might not have like intention that to be like, this is poetry about disability.
Heck yeah.
Okay.
Heck yeah. That collection, so that collection is Sam Sachs Madness, just called Madness, but I'm not sure how I would like elevator pitch it or sum it up in one. It's a lot of like, it feels like a lot of self-discovery poems. There's a lot around him as a child and reflecting on, I mean, that poem was called On Trepanation, but there are other poems on alcohol, on mass hysteria, on different kind of topics. You know, it feels like a very kind of, not entry, or kind of entry, like a dipping into different kind of, you know, ruminations on different aspects of mental health, and then on himself, and himself as a queer person, as a gay man, and then as a mentally ill person as well, or person with mental health experiences, you know. And I liked that. I like that quality. I like that feeling of kind of dipping yourself into all of these things and just kind of encountering them for what feels maybe not for the first time, but for the first time actually seeing a lot of these things. And I don't know, that feels kind of like airy-fairy.
No, I like it. I
you
like
know what
it.
I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When did you first read his poetry?
A couple of months ago, I think.
Wow.
Not long ago.
And it was a recommendation from Jordan?
Yes.
Okay, I want to shout out Jordan again because that's very much up your alley.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. And that's honestly so much of to the point where I don't really seek out books or poets or poetry or theater so much anymore. I tend to ask friends who I enjoy the work of, or friends who I just like, people who I trust, and I'm like, what are you reading at the moment? Let me read that as well.
Yeah. The privilege of having such a like cohesive poetry community is that you can lean on that. That's awesome.
Heck yeah.
But yeah, the reason why I say it's up your alley is because like that's those things are a lot about what you write about as well, right?
A little bit. Yeah. I don't know why I sound so
I don't know. Do you
hesitant around that, but yeah.
Do you ever feel like you get either by other people or by yourself sort of like put into a box by the poetry that you're like known for, that you're like,
oh heck yeah.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. I mean, I say as someone who has kind of dramatically shifted the character of their box from being that sounds such a the color of my box has changed. from from God, from someone who used to be kind of the mental health poet and specifically kind of the schizophrenic poet, transitioning into. I feel like the queer sex poet has kind of become the new moniker a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah.
I don't know at what point I dipped into your poetry because I'm pretty sure that apart from the cover slam, the first poem that I ever saw you perform was I don't know what the names of all your poems are. The one about your friend passing away who was in
yes.
the relationship. I'm almost like,
Amen.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yes, amen. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, like it's a queer poem, but it's not a sex poem
No.
at all. And it's not a mental health poem. It's like something quite different. So I think I remember one time quite early on in knowing you that you were like, everybody knows me as a mental health poet. And now I'm moving into like queer sexy stuff. And I'm like, hey.
Really? Oh, well, that's fine. Do you want to know where that poem came from?
Yes, please.
And it's gonna originally that started from this idea of language, right? And the meaning of a word like amen, which as like a closing to a prayer, but also doesn't actually have one distinct meaning, right? And I kind of love that. I love that quality about it. Originally, that poem was a defense of the word amen. It was that thing of, I think something horrendous, awful had happened in the news, and there's a big outcry, as there often is from the States, as it often is, around like sending thoughts and prayers. And there was a response to that of like, thoughts and prayers are useless. Don't do that. Here's some like active like action. And I was interested in thinking about the idea of like, what kind of an action is it to say sending thoughts and prayers? You know, saying amen at the end of a prayer for someone, at the end of a thought.
Yeah.
A kind of conclusion or a summary. And then that kind of like extrapolated and went all over. But that poem, what spurred it on was, do you know Amber Run?
No.
They have a song called Amen.
Great.
Which is about someone passing away and is in kind of in a way of honoring them, I suppose, or paying respects to them.
Yeah, almost kind of like a conclusive tautoko, like wow. I like that.
Because I mean, that story as well is a true story. Two friends from over in the UK. A lot of the conversations around amen and language didn't happen in that setting as they do in the poem. But what happened in the real life setting was that juxtaposition of me and Jessica, which is not her real name, but we'll maintain it for consistency. Being at this funeral and then seeing this kind of weird juxtaposition of us being the only queer people there amongst family, and lots of loving words being spoken and shared, lots of beautiful phrases and stuff, but us feeling very, very alienated in that space, and very, like Jessica especially as the partner of this of our friend, feeling very kind of stared at, even as people say these beautiful things, these beautiful phrases, you know.
There's it sort of brings to mind just this thought that was sort of shared in I guess it was a comedy set, you know, Jonathan Van Ness came
Yes.
and they did a they did a performance, and the sort of like running thread throughout their performance was this idea of, well, primarily it was about queer joy, but they were like, within queer joy, there is always duality. And that's kind of what I get from that, this feeling that you're like in this space with all these loving words and a setting which is meant to be for support, but inside it you're like, I'm obviously not meant to be here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't really know how that links. And he says, well, I don't know, I think your poem also has a significant amount of queer joy in it, even within the sadness and the grief as well.
I tried to.
Yeah.
I try to capture. I mean, ultimately, it comes down to, I think, that thing of language as a tool, and then what's underneath the tool, right? What is the intention? But also, what is the intention? But what are the motivators behind that intention, right? Like, what are people trying to do with language, and why are people trying to do it? You know, like, why did this? You know, why did Joanne's mother come up and say God bless?
Yeah.
You know,
what does it mean? What does she mean?
Yeah, what does it mean? And what spurred her to do that? Right? Like, why those words? Why that moment? Why? Yeah, I don't know. So many questions there, and I love those questions. And I love how language always kind of sits on top of them. You know, we focus on language and we think of language as the thing of it, but there's so much underneath it, and language just always kind of sits on top as the final catalyst to it, you know.
I think that sort of I think seeing language as a fluid sort of beast is something that you look at a lot in your poetry as well. I also can't remember the name of this poem, but I remember a line from it because the first time I heard it, I almost fell off my chair. I was like, I love this so much. The Hey Homophobe. Haven't you ever heard of a homophone before?
Ain't you ever heard of a homophone before? I love that line so much.
But that poem is that poem is so much about that, like pulling apart this idea that language is fixed and the rules and meanings are like a crutch, when really it's something that sort of sits on top of all of what you were saying, of all the other sort of like meaning that we share. I absolutely love it. I fang for that in a big way. And I also just like imagine, like, how do you jump into that? Like, do you just start writing, or like I brainstorm like crazy and like if I could have a conspiracy wall for my poems.
Strings attached to pictures.
Exactly.
Maps to nowhere.
attached to words, attached to homophones, like, you know, attached to homophobes, like like, yeah, how do you get into that? Like with that poem, what happened when you wrote it?
I think I got in trouble, not trouble, but I got funny looks the last time I was in a workshop with kids, I think. And we're talking about poetry and writing and process. And I think we talked about like what's the one tip that you would give to writers around poetry and theatre. And my go-to tip whenever people are like, what's your one tip?
One weird trick.
One weird trick. Yeah.
Oh, it's hate them.
Earn $500 a day with this one life hack. But it's a bit hyperbolic, but it's one I go back to a lot, and I love it a lot, is the words don't matter. The words don't matter. They really don't. And I think that's true in a lot of ways for poetry and for theater, especially, and actually anything when you have bodies in space. If you have bodies in space, even more so. And it's hyperbolic, like I said. Like, the words do matter. Like, there's a lot of choices that go into that, you know, even if language is the thing that sits on top. But again, because it sits on top, the words that we choose, because words are so, they feel like the end of the line of the decisions that we're making, right? And so they feel like the most important choice, and they have the most impact. But there's such a wealth of choices that come before it, right? I think with poetry, with poems, when I'm writing, and even for theater, actually, I kind of try to sit and stew in the idea of the world of the poem. Like, if I imagine, I kind of, to put like a visual metaphor to it, because I don't know any other way to describe it.
Great.
Like, if you imagine the words for a poem sitting on top of a pond, like, when I write and when I edit, I kind of try to sit with the poem and I try to see what's underneath that. Like, what's the water? What's all of the, like, non-formed things, you know?
Also, what are the flies going to be like on top of the water?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like, because I try to, and like, I try to get actors to think of this whenever I'm directing or dramaturging, you know? You get actors that are focused on lines and delivery of lines, and it's like, no, why are you here? What is the room like? What is what is the time of day? What is the season? What is the year? What is the political climate? Like, those choices, those decisions and world building things are infinite. There is no end to all of those kind of enriching details that you can discover. And the more of those that you can kind of sift through and find what's interesting and what's not, right? What's useful and what pulls you in and what feels relevant, right? The more of that you have and you can hold, the more sense the words will make when you finally come to them, right? And I think that's what I mean when I say the words come last. The words don't matter. The words come last. Right? When you finally speak this poem and you put the thought and intention of the poem, the world of the poem, through the filter of these words, like, how much of a catalyst effect do they have, right? Because I feel like the more you do that sitting in it world building work, the more powerful the words are. Yeah. And then audiences watch it and they're like, oh, the poem was beautiful. The language, the words, you know, that's all we ever talk about. Word choice, blah, 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 blah. And those choices are important. Like, they're very important. I don't want to diminish those, although I kind of do. But, you know, I feel like we don't often look at the world building enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't invest in the pond, then the lily pads are just going to be on a dry, empty ground.
Heck yeah. And I mean, like, that poem for, like, Joanne and Jessica, which is, like, who that poem is, it wasn't originally for them, but it is now, you know? Like, that poem doesn't exist without them, and without my friendship for them, and without the world that we had for years and years before a 3-minute, you know, a 3-minute poem, 400 words, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's something for me to take away. I'm sitting here like taking notes. Like, okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
2 minutes 58 seconds. Yeah, great.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like, those four. If we talk about like editing a poem or writing a poem, those I think it was 2.5 years that I spent with them are infinitely more important than the week that I spent writing that poem in terms of like process, right? Yeah. I mean, it's like that. You'll hear it from acting teachers to actors all the time, you know. The most important thing you can do is go out and live. Go out and live and watch people and collect stories and, you know, and it's a bit hyperbolic, but it's true. Like, what is the world that you're drawing from that you want to inhabit, right?
Yeah, I guess quite often when people write, they're interested in producing text. You know, like it's almost, it's like a question of like production, of productivity.
Yeah.
And that is so alienated from the whole rest of who you are. Whereas really, I guess, I wouldn't say a good piece of writing, but like a fulfilling piece of writing is a culmination of all those things, not separate from, which is like radically anti-capitalist.
Yeah. Heck yeah. Like absolutely the fusing of those two things, right? And I mean, like, I'm not saying that when I sit down at my laptop to edit a poem that I'm not looking at word choice and rhythm and, you know, I love me some assonance.
It's don't we all?
Right.
Don't we? But I mean, yeah. But I mean, we all love. Sorry, I just keep looking at this velvet ceiling. There's a velvet ceiling in there.
Glow just came into the recording studio, and it is beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
It's really highlighting the mushrooms, the mushroom earrings.
I am wearing mushroom
stunning.
earrings. Thank you. But what I was going to say is, we all still love our craft. You know.
Ish.
What do you mean? Love hate?
Love hate. I have a really hard. I don't know if we've ever had this conversation.
No, we haven't. I want you to tell me what you love hate about the craft whilst I take off my sweater. I'm feeling very warm.
It's quite toasty in here. Because did I ever tell you why I stopped writing mental health poetry?
No.
I don't actually I don't know how many people I've had this conversation with. It's a big conversation. I don't have it very often. For the longest time, for like a year and a half.
That's a long time.
Which for a 24-year-old feels like the world.
Yeah.
For like a year and a half, 2 years, the only thing I wrote about was schizophrenia. That was a big part of my identity as an artist and a maker. I used to perform these really, really angry, or not angry, politically minded and very stern, I'll say, poems about schizophrenia and psychosis and psychotic experiences, and like advocacy for and I don't know how many of these poems you would have heard, even like 8 Simple Rules. Psychosis is perfectly natural, no?
Not sure.
Yeah, I mean, again, I stopped performing them. And the reason I stopped performing these poems, these kind of advocacy poems, is because they would feel really phenomenal in the moment. And they would get a good reaction. They'd always get a good reaction. And friends were really supportive. And then I would talk to friends afterwards around psychosis and just my kind of living with it on a day-to-day, and the love for the poetry was still there, but the actual like awareness of the experiences didn't go any deeper than the poems, if that makes sense.
They engaged with it for 3 minutes.
Yes. Like I never felt lonelier in my life than when I was doing those 3-minute poems, being applauded at a slam, and then going home still alone, no more connected to friends or loved ones. Just miserable.
Yeah.
Really miserable.
It's almost like going to a therapist, sitting down, being extremely vulnerable, and then them just leaving.
Absolutely. Or even like going into a doctor, them asking, and I think you must have been through this experience as well, not to put you on this, but like going in, explaining your story for half an hour with a psychiatrist for the first time, and then feeling really good about it, and then coming back the next day and them asking the exact same questions.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We've all had that experience.
Yeah.
I was starting to have it with poetry. I was starting to have it with poetry,
Mm.
to the point where I had performed these poems for like 2 years. I was only getting angrier and feeling more alone and starting to hate poetry a little bit and hate art a little bit. And I remember at the end of those 2 years, around then, was when I had a chat with my psychiatrist being like, hey, we think schizophrenia was the wrong diagnosis. We want to reassess.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that was its own thing, right? My
Mm.
world was kind of caving in. Again, I'd built my kind of identity around this for a long time. And then I remember I went and chatted to a close friend of mine, and I thought it was going to be this big reveal. I felt guilty. I felt awful. I felt like I'd lost an aspect of my identity. My experiences hadn't changed, but the language had kind of been thrown out the window.
Mm.
And my friend said to me, I was like, hey, this isn't the right diagnosis. I don't know what it is yet, but this is where I'm at. And I was really upset. And they were kind of like, oh, okay, cool. And the reaction kind of threw me because I was like, well, this is someone who had not only like listened to my poems and my theater and for everything for these 2 years, but had engaged with me a lot. And I asked, I pushed to figure out what the reaction was. I was like, is it okay? What's the deal?
Yeah.
And they said, well, I guess I never really understood what schizophrenia meant, so I don't really know how to take this news. And I tell you, never have I hated myself as an artist. Never have I hated poetry more in my life in that moment. Because it was like I've been performing these for what do you mean you have no idea? I've been performing poems where I talk about experience of it for...
Yeah, and you've told me you liked them.
And you've told me you liked them. Like, I've won slams with these things. I've won competitions with these poems. In all, like, craft sense of the word. Like, these should be good poems doing good work. And it hit me in that moment. I was like, none of my friends are... Like, none of them are going home and jumping on Wikipedia to look at, like, schizophrenia symptoms. How to best support my friend. What does delusion mean? Like, that work doesn't happen because of a poem.
Yeah.
And, yeah, so that's... Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it can... I feel like, arguably, it can happen because of a poem. But it wasn't happening, and you were really... putting so much of yourself into it for not enough really coming back for you.
Yeah. And that's when I swapped to queer poems.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And queer poems got the exact same response. I figured out that I could tell a joke about queer sex, get a massive laugh, and it didn't feel like putting anything of myself on the line.
Yeah.
It didn't feel... not in the beginning. Now I'm starting to actually, like, delve into that and figure out my own kind of sexuality journey through poetry in a real engaged way. But, yeah, for a time I was just like, fuck this. I'm going to tell a joke that feels really safe and distanced for me. And it's going to get the same reaction. We're all going to cheer and laugh at a slam, and then I'm going to go home and I still feel like I've been sheltered enough to not. Yeah.
I think it brings up a really important point that I think you and I potentially spoke about last time I interviewed you on a podcast. But I feel like it's worth bringing up for the audience of this podcast as well. And it's something that people don't say every time they MC a slam, but sometimes they do, and I really appreciate it when they do. Which is that I can't remember exactly how they phrase it, but like no slam is worth your safety, essentially. But also just like no performance is worth your safety.
Heck yeah.
And I think that's like as someone who really enjoys performing and currently navigating my own relationship with being competitive, is something that's a weird sort of thing to grapple with, because on one hand, I know that part of what poetry does for me is it gives me a space to be vulnerable, and especially in the community that you and I are in, I often feel like I can be quite vulnerable and still feel held. I also know, and this is not advice to anyone doing the slam, but I also know that being vulnerable is like advice that's often given to slam poets. Like you can't just like not have any vulnerability, because in order to connect with an audience, you need to connect with them on some level.
Yeah.
That's vulnerability in itself. But yeah, I've also been in situations where I've done poems and I've been like, oh, I feel like I shared too much. And then I've sat down and been like, not worth it.
Yeah, not worth it.
Not worth it.
Not worth it. Yeah.
So it's an interesting sort of push and pull for me, where I'm like, if I do something too far removed from myself and political, I feel like I'm not connecting. But if I do something too vulnerable, I no longer feel like it's worth it. I no longer feel safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just sort of, it's an interesting push and pull.
Heck yeah.
And I imagine that you're grappling with that, moving into slightly more vulnerable territory in your newer poems as well.
Totally.
Yeah.
I feel like slam in particular is such a, especially in kind of adult spheres, is such a individual task, and it's such a like powerful art form. Like you can jump on a mic for 3 minutes and say whatever you want to, and even like taking the idea of poetry out of the equation and the idea of poetic craft, like even just sitting with a thought, an idea, and deciding that you want to talk about it for 3 minutes, and not only that you want to talk about it, but you want to build some kind of thing around this idea, right? Whether it's a poem or a song or a comedy set, right? Like to think of an idea and be like, yeah, this is worth building something around, and then sharing that thing, you know? I feel like sometimes we forget how unwieldy the things we build can be. Like the stories that we construct even for ourselves have a lot of power. Like hell, the idea of like negative like thought spirals, right? Like how many of us have just gone about our day like having something shit happen to us and then just spiraling and building the story of it in our head, right?
I wish there was a 3-minute limit on negative thought spirals.
Negative thought spiral. Literally. Oh, thank God there is a 3-minute limit for slams. But you know, I think it's the same principle, right? Like even if there's a degree of consciousness around it, right? Like you're doing essentially the same thing. You're adding to a story. It is a powerful thing, and we don't always do it in a way that's, again, taking craft out of the equation for a second. Like we don't always do it in a way that's safe for ourselves or for other people. You know, sometimes we build things that are bigger than our ability to hold and manage and share. Not just responsibly, the idea of responsibly, but even just our capacity for it, you know, like holding this thing and it kind of getting out of hand, right? Like that happens. Yeah. You know, I think we've all seen that I think I've done it. I'm sure many of us have, you know, and I think we've all left a slam feeling worse than when we went in, beating ourselves up, thinking that was supposed to like expunge this thing, and instead it's just made it worse. Why has it made it worse? You know, I think we've all been in that position, that person.
Yeah. I think slam's an interesting thing for that, especially because of the competition element in there as well. Don't get me wrong, listeners, I am a huge fan of the slam, and I think it's a really cool way of getting people on the mic. Yeah. And you know, also creating a community around it. Like it's actually, okay, I'm getting on a bit of a tangent here, but whatever.
Yes.
Positive thought spiral. Like, the number of people that I see at a slam, I know we're always like, oh, we don't have enough judges, but every single time I've gone to a slam, I've, like, talked to a number of people who are like, I've never been to a slam. This is my first time here. I've just come to see the poetry. And I feel like that happens because it's a competition, you know?
Right.
I think people are coming because it's like, this is like coming to see a sport.
Yeah.
You know?
Heck yeah.
So props to slam for that. But I think, yeah, there's definitely an element of the fact that it's a competition that can encourage people to potentially take risks that they might not otherwise take because they're competitive. Yeah.
It's such a double-edged sword, right? Like, you introduce an element like that, and again, it's a powerful thing. Competition is a powerful thing. People get really invested, You know, as they should. As they should. You should care. You should care about the things that you do. They should make you excited. You should want to win. You should want to go in there and blow everyone away, right? But the second you start putting your self-worth on that, especially in the way that competition exists outside of ourselves sometimes. Competition with yourself, great. Friendly competition amongst friends, great. Fun. Competition in a structure where there are prizes on the line and there's like work opportunities at stake and like pathways to more gigs or more touring opportunities, you know, when there is an opportunity to enter into this idea of like a professional poet now that you've won a slam or done well at a slam, you know. Just that in itself, like the idea that suddenly you are a professional because you've done well at slam, is a really dangerous thing, I think, to chuck on poets.
I feel like now's probably an interesting time for me to mention that you're the national slam champ currently.
Oh, yeah. I forgot. I did do that thing. I did.
Do you feel
That's
like
good.
do you feel like it's changed your do you feel like a more professional poet now that you've won?
It would be irresponsible of me to say no. Yes, it does. I wish I could sit here and be like, oh, it's not changed me at all. I'm the same poet that I've always. Hell no. I think it would be remarkable if I had remained the same poet, you know, because it's the Nationals. It's a massive, it's the biggest, technically speaking, the biggest competition in the country. It does offer work opportunities. It does change people's opinions of you. It would be a miracle if I hadn't changed at least a little bit in response to that, you know, not purposefully, but even just being a person in relationship with other people and the way they look at me now. Yeah, like people do treat you differently, which is a very strange thing to navigate. Yeah. I don't think I'm necessarily a better poet though. After winning the National Poetry Slam. I think I'm a better poet because I've continued to do poetry for a year and continue to practice and read and all the things.
Experience.
But winning a title doesn't immediately like level up your poetry.
Yeah. I guess it's the same with anything, right? Yeah. I also want to mention, and we can cut this out if you want. I also want to mention that you went to Worlds recently and you didn't have a good experience.
It was the worst experience of my life.
I feel like
not even being hyperbolic.
I feel like mine was like Latoshi's. Like, you didn't have a very good experience.
Honestly, that's the thing as well. There would be poets out there who would be like, remember to be political about the way that you talk about it, even though you didn't have a great experience. That was the worst experience of my life. I have never been to an event that was so poorly organized, with so little care for the poets involved, I have never been a part of, again, this idea of competition as a structure, right? And a business, and part of like a poetry circuit or a touring circuit, that is very much the beast that world kind of exists in, and the horrific damage that it did to so many poets in that space. Honestly unacceptable. If that's what it means to be a professional poet of that level, I'd want nothing to do with it. Honestly,
I just feel like the conversation that you and I were having the other day about it is that it put into perspective the work that's happening within New Zealand to make sure that professional poetry continues to have integrity and look after its poets and stuff like that.
Heck yeah. Well, again, I mean, he'd probably kick my ass for saying it, but like Ken Arkind, who is one of the shout out Ken Arkind, amazing. I could see it coming. I saw it coming. One of my closest friends, actually, like one of my absolute closest friends, ride or die is an expression I don't know the meaning of, but I've heard straight people use it. And he's heterosexual, so we'll stay with it. But people, I don't know if I should say this, but fuck it. People give him a hard time sometimes because of how pedantic he gets around slam and finding judges who he thinks will do right by the poets and making spaces for poets. And he always says that it's for the poets. How can we always bring it back to the poets? People give him a hard time for being so pedantic. Sometimes, or tease him for it. And after Worlds, I have so much more respect and awareness for why that man does what he does and why he cares so much about those aspects of slam and why he will not, like, I've never seen it, but I've heard stories of Ken holding off a slam for hours until he gets the right judges in the room and the right, making sure that the poets are feeling ready, right? I don't know how true those stories are, but it's a great story. I have so much more time for that now after Worlds, because I feel like I've seen what the antithesis to that is. I've seen what it looks like when organizers only care about the event and how the event is perceived and care nothing about the poets participating. Again, that thing of like only caring about what's on the surface and what people see initially and caring very little about the pond underneath, right?
Yeah.
Right? Like, that was World's experience for me.
They've not done their world building.
They've not done the world building. And it felt dehumanizing. And I've never felt that at Jaffa. You know, shout out Kyrie Rosinski and again Ken for organizing that space. That's very much Carrie's kind of child. But yeah, seeing what they do for slam spaces in Auckland primarily, but New Zealand as well. I'm just like, okay, now I get it. So much more. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can be really quite grateful. I feel like I send a lot of love to our poetry community all the time on this podcast, but whatever, that's like part of the purpose of it, to just be like celebrate, because I feel like
Heck yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot to celebrate for who we have, and also like the things that I'm seeing like spring from that as well, like like groups of poets who come to slams who know each other and are like writing poetry and practicing their poems and like doing things together outside of that, and like you know, like it's very much like a growing beast and like tended to quite carefully.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, I think we can be really grateful for that. I'm grateful for that.
Heck yeah.
I mean, it's definitely the space that like made me feel comfortable enough to start doing any kind of poetry. So yeah, very grateful for it. But you're touring at the moment.
I am touring. I've just come back from Christchurch. which was amazing, phenomenal.
Shout out Little Andromeda.
Yes, shout out Ray Shipley
Shout out Ray Shipley.
for hosting like the most beautiful queer open mic event
That
I've been
happens
to in a long
monthly,
time.
right?
Monthly at Little
Yeah.
Andromeda.
What is it called?
Ray Shipley's Late Night Poetry Hour.
So good.
Yeah, which is very, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'm just getting up my little like thing to see where
Yes.
I'm going next. Actually, no, I know. Tauranga tomorrow,
Whoa.
which is really
Okay.
exciting,
Great.
and then
Which will be in the past for the people who listen to this podcast, but
yeah,
that's fine.
time travel. And then Hawke's Bay, and then Golden Bay near Nelson's, top of
Ooh,
South Island, and
nice.
then Wellington for a week and a half,
Beautiful.
and then back up to Auckland to do some stuff.
Great.
Yeah, which should be really cool.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Exciting. And you also make theatre. Is the other thing that you do.
I do.
Which, I mean,
sometimes.
like, poetry and theatre, kissing cousins.
Yes. kissing cousins?
Have you never heard that?
I've
expression?
never heard that. I love that.
Maybe that's a straight person thing. I'm not straight for anyone who's listening. Jesus.
Kissing cousins.
But yeah.
Kissing cousins. Oh, I'm
Um,
not straight, but I am from a farm.
yeah,
I
correct.
don't know what that means. Oh.
I can't even remember what oh yeah, that's right. You do theatre as well.
Yes,
Earlier this year you had a show, Chrome Dome and Schizo,
I did.
which was fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah. Tears, laughter, crying, screaming, throwing up.
Hey, I knew I heard retching from the back of the audience. I love it. We love a visceral reaction.
No, it was fantastic. Do you have theatre plans in the works? Because I've not really spoken to you about this. And how secret are they?
I have a couple of things in the works. A couple of them I can't talk about.
Yeah.
One of which will be coming out in December,
Nice.
which will be really fun, I think.
Yeah.
And then we're hoping to bring Chrome Dome and Schizo back.
Great.
Yeah, so we did that. That was an amazing experience. It's a show that's existed in different forms for like 6 years. It was originally a poetry anthology that turned into a play that was only a play that then turned back into a play poetry amalgamation, which was really fun. We did that in like 3 weeks as well.
That was the fastest. Every single person that I spoke to about this was like, hold on, they've got it on already?
Yeah.
Like they were doing auditions like last week.
Yeah, super tight process. We want to bring it back. We want to bring it back so that we can do it with funding, which would be really great.
Yeah.
And just with time, just so again that we can kind of exist in the world and do some of that world building, sifting.
Pond sifting.
Yeah, pond sifting. Just just bathing in a pond for a little while. Like we really want to do that process
Nice.
for a little while. The idea of memorizing some of the poems, the long 15-page poems in that play, again, stressed me out, but
Fair.
I'm up for it. It was a good
Yeah.
time.
I mean, I wouldn't have noticed that you had any problem with memorizing them. Watching the play, I wouldn't have noticed.
Which is speaks wonders to our technician. Shout out to Paul, who covered my ass so many times.
I don't even understand how that works, but that's the magic of the theatre.
Literally, him winging it with lights and cues,
Oh,
catching up
great.
or going
Great.
back to wherever I'm. It actually didn't happen that too often, which surprised me. I was getting before that show opened, I was getting ready to be like, something's gonna go wrong. I'm gonna fuck up this long ass poem. But no, it went okay for
Yeah.
the majority of it, which is good.
Did you feel? Because I feel like when you were telling me that, like, you'd stopped writing mental health poetry, did it feel safer bringing this out in more theatre format. I don't know why.
Mm.
I have my own ideas about why it might have felt safer
Mm.
for you, and if it did. But I don't know.
Mm.
What are your thoughts on it? Your
Um,
experiences of it?
yeah, it definitely did. It definitely did because again, it felt like it had enough time to kind of marinate
Mm.
in its own kind of world. Again, because I wrote it 6 years ago, and it's something I've dipped in and out of. It felt like it had soaked up enough kind of queer story because it's about a relationship and
Mhm.
mental health experiences. Not because I named them or needed to explicitly state them to an audience,
Mm.
but they just kind of existed in the world and became a part of the reality of it. You
Mm.
know, the idea of like theater as behavior, it just kind of became the behavior of the piece,
Mm.
and that did a lot of good.
Mm.
Like even like trying to sell the show, sometimes people would be like, do you think it's a queer play or do you think it's a mental health play?
Mm.
And even that question kind of starts to rip
Mm.
the kind of what feels good about it.
Mm. What color is your box?
What colors your yeah, literally. Well, I mean, like my thing with disability in theater, for instance, I'm using disability very consciously there.
Mm.
Like my issue with it, and this has been the subject of like residencies for me in the past, is I don't think theater is often the best format for stories in which change can't happen because of a character or a person's ability to take action.
Okay.
Which is I did not word that well. Let me try again.
It's just because you're talking to someone who's like not done anything really theatre based since drama in high school. So I'm like,
right. The idea. So like, if you think of like the idea of theatre, we often talk about the idea of characters make choices.
Yeah.
Characters take action, right?
Yeah.
And through action, they influence the story.
Yeah.
Right. So when this is like a simplified explanation of it, but like the idea of like actors will put actions to lines. What am I doing in this moment?
Yeah.
Right. Again, getting away from the idea of just dialogue and being like, no, what am I doing? What is my body in the space?
Yeah.
Like doing, what is the behavior? But with mental health stories, for instance, schizophrenia, psychosis, for instance, is something that you cannot choose your way out of.
I see what you're saying now.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, you cannot make a choice that will definitely... Do you know what I mean?
I do.
Like...
Yeah.
And so for me, a lot of the questions around... And I mean, there are narratives that exist out there. The idea of, like, I'm going to choose medication, choose therapy, choose all these, like, recovery stories, right?
Yeah.
But for me, I was really interested for a long time in stories that just allowed characters to sit in their experiences. What does it mean for a character who has experiences of psychosis to just exist with experiences of psychosis, right? Like, how do you show that? And like theater, or the way that we sell theater or frame theater, or even like read it or understand it when we watch it, sometimes we're always looking, especially with mental health, we're always looking for characters to make choices to try and escape mental health, to try and escape their negative situations for something else, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
for the longest,
They're trying to solve the problem.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And just for the longest time, I was like, no, what does it mean to sit in this? You know, which I mean, that relationship.
Yeah.
Again, the question of like, was it a positive or a negative experience? Again, like, neither and both.
Yeah. Not a useful binary.
Not a useful binary.
Like a lot of things in life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I find that with poetry a lot of the time as well, you know, the idea of like, so many things. Like, I remember years ago I used to get really angry at poets when I would talk about poetry being an inherently ableist kind of art form. And I used to say that a lot. And my reasoning for it, one of the reasons for it was, you don't have to give a 30-second explanation for what psychosis is before you do your poem about basketball.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And there are aspects of that I still like agree with in various kind of ways. But like you look at the way that kind of like metaphors around mental health exist, and like I'm trying to write about this at the moment, actually, the way that like psychosis exists as a metaphor in news media or horror film advertising, and how they often look the same, which is very concerning. You know, right? But this thing of like Michael Myers, evil incarnate, madness has a new name, face, whatever. You know,
Yeah.
and then the same kind of rhetoric that we see around like gun violence in the US, for instance. Like metaphor has a lot to answer for what it's done for the mental health community.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where the love-hate comes in.
Right.
Because sometimes I step into poetry and I'll perform a poem around mental health, and it feels like the audience comes in with their expectations, which are so much based in that, right? There's so much based in like news headlines and horror film narratives and you know, psychos and serial killers. That's so much where their expectation sits. And you have to use that, right? You have to use the audience's expectations.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. As a teacher, we call that activating schema.
Oh, I'm gonna Google that when I get home. I love that. Well, that's the thing, right? Like you've got to acknowledge that these kids or these audience members are coming in from a certain perspective.
Yeah.
And that's your starting point, right? And sometimes I come in with a poem, and that starting point is so far away from where I want the conversation to be, and that dissonance and the idea of having to cross that gap in a 3-minute poem.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, feels awful.
Yeah.
It feels sometimes, because also as well, sometimes audience members expect you to come to them or come to a midpoint. That thing of theater, right? Like, is it a mental health story or a queer story? People will ask questions of the work and will expect you to move towards them.
Yeah.
And it feels like sometimes you have to staunchly say, no, it's this. It's this.
Yeah. Yeah. And did you feel more able to do that with your play than you were with poetry?
Yes. Yes.
Do you think like part of that is because of the form, and also the fact that it was like very much yours?
I think so. I do think so. Theater, one of the advantages of theater is that it's not 3 minutes, right? Like you're existing in a world and in a story for a long period of time, right? So you can sit in it a little bit more. There's more scope to do that. And then again, especially with like poetry, slam poetry, especially where there's so much pressure sometimes to make a point, make a statement. And sometimes you want to say like, no, I don't want to make a statement. I want to I can't, we can't make statements right now.
Yeah.
We're not at the point where we are able to make statements. We actually just need to sit in this stuff for a while, figure out what we've got, and then we can start pulling things out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which doesn't win you slams. And it doesn't make an audience always feel like they got what they were expecting. And that's a hard thing to kind of grapple with. But yeah.
Poems aren't always for the audience though.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I'm just looking at time.
Yes.
Can I ask what poem you were thinking of reading?
There was a poem I was trying to finish a poem before.
Fresh.
Yeah, and I didn't get there. See, this always happens. So sorry. I always go in thinking, yeah, this is the poem that I'm going to do. And then I'm like, oh no, because we end up talking about something, or I see a poem and I'm like, oh, I see. You ever do you plan a poem that you want to do, and then you see a poem on stage and you're like, that's amazing. I'm going to change my entire.
Yeah. See, I wish I did more of that.
Oh no. No. Oh. Yeah, no, I have a poem that's like half ready, and I wish it was ready entirely.
If it's not ready, then you don't have to read it.
Yeah. I might try this one and see how it goes. It might suck.
Is this the new one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's called The Art of Coming Home. Breathe. Brain fade to the background noise of walking up to your wooden front door. Notice how it doesn't feel like your door anymore. But it is. When you come home from the hospital, sit. In the silence, your friends sing. For at least 6 seconds. Six seconds. Let it linger. Let them text with their heads down. Let them nap. Let them clean up after themselves until there is nothing left but vacuumed carpet. They have bought you pieces of furniture or a pot, planted themselves on the front of your couch, right on the edge. Joke about how you can't take care of pot plants. Not a safe bet. Let them make your bed, whisper stay safe, and hug you when they leave through the front door. One by one, in a line waiting for a hug, let them go if they want. And 6 seconds. Stand in every doorway and look into each room. 6 seconds. Stare at your cool home. Rediscover your favorite cutlery in the kitchen, your favorite mug, the one with the stupid picture on the front. Feel the cool, crisp texture of your duvet cover. Relish in the smell of 6-week-old dust, the kind that smells fresh somehow, like an open window. And when friends come back, treat every single sentence filled with single-digit words, hey, you okay? You, like a golden opportunity to stop. Exhale. And make a single-digit joke to let them know everything. That hotel was horrible. The bellboy kept asking if he could watch me pee. I've never had so much yogurt. Everything will be okay when they leave. Teach them it is okay to leave, that you will still be here when they return some way. Friends and medication are good for the same things, feeling drowsy, grounding, weight gain. Everyone's a little bit new to this. Everything's a little bit sore. Bathroom, 6 seconds. Cold tiles, plastic curtains, small, ceramic white with a smell. Dip yourself into a warm bath with lavender and your phone. Baths are boring. Hallway, 6 seconds. Wooden floor, straight lines, cyan wallpaper, kinda green. Like the first sip of English breakfast tea on a cold morning at your grandmother's cottage house. Replace hallucinations with English wallpaper in the living room. Flowers on flowers on flowers on your feet on top of a heater wearing fluffy socks. Lie back first on the carpet of your suburb-ish apartment. Bedroom, 6 seconds. Cold duvet, crisp. Dusty windowsill to your left. Dusty headboard to your front. Lamp, closet, sliding doors shut. 6 seconds. Lie down face first. Cold duvet, crisp. A bed is more comfortable after a holiday. This is sort of like a holiday. Treat it similarly to a holiday. Settle in slowly. Let it feel weird, uncomfortable. 6 seconds. Slowly.